This is going to shift for a little bit. We are about to do something very special. And I'm so like, we were talking about it. If we were having come to Jesus moments, if we was getting to shout and praise when we talked about what we were about to do next, me and Miss Paula. And so, oh man, I can't even tell you guys what you're about to experience, what you're about to just sit in on and listen to. For those of you who have been following me for some time, I started a podcast called the Warrior Woman Podcast, and it's designed for you to hear other Black women's journey through soul care, just like we're doing today. So just because it's a summit, it doesn't mean that we're still not teaching, we're still not educating, we're still not pouring. But there was a moment where I was going to bring Miss Paula on, and we were going to record her podcast. And she had experienced some tragedies in her life. And you can just feel somebody's spirit, and you can get a sense of where they are. And there was a moment that I was like, she's going to try to push through this because we show up the same way. You see, you recognize things in other people because they're first within you. Every time we point that finger at somebody, those three that are pointing back at us tell us, ma'am, you deal with the same thing. That's the plank. You know what I'm saying? We pointing the speck, and meanwhile, the plank is just smacking people in the face because we can't see it. And so we held space. We held space for where she was. So I'm going to bring Miss Paula to the stage. She and I are going to have a conversation. And our conversation is titled Sisterhood in Soul Care. Miss Paula, welcome to the stage.
Thank you so much for having me. So happy to be here.
Listen, when I tell you her smile radiates through the screen, I promise you, it always blesses me when I see her in this space. And so the reason why I am calling this, and I'm just going to put it up here, Sisterhood and Soul Care, this is going to serve as a live podcast recording. But I want you all to just glean and listen to the importance of what happened during that moment. And I think we were on our StreamYard screen. We were getting ready to record. I had all the things set and ready to go. And she came on, and then she shared with me some things that she was dealing with around grief and the loss of certain people within her life. And all too often, we don't talk about grief in a way that allows us to go through it. We usually say cliche things like time heals all wounds. That's a lie. I'm here just to tell you that's a lie. Understanding is what actually heals all wounds. Now, how long it takes you to understand, that's where the time issue is. You get to choose that. God will tell you, he can hear. If Jesus can walk through, if a woman can put her hand on the hem of his garment and be healed, explain to me then how time heals all wounds. How long did she deal with the issue of blood? How many years did she have to hide and shrink and deal with humiliation and deal with shame and deal with guilt and deal with abandonment and deal with rejection? And she just touched the hem of a garment is not big. The hem isn't big. And she was healed. But we held space for a moment in time to bring understanding, to bring grace, to bring compassion into the space. And so, Miss Paula, I'm so grateful that you're here, and I'm so grateful that you agreed to have this conversation, because there were many things that were challenging you. And so at your level of vulnerability and transparency, please share with them what kind of space you were in when we just logged on to do the podcast.
Yeah. So, hi everybody. So the time that I had logged on, I had just lost a very dear friend of mine, who I have been friends with over 20 years. And I was actually her healthcare power of attorney. So if you are not familiar with what that means, that is the person that you deem to make sure that when decisions have to be made about your life, you make those decisions based on what you want. And my friend had gone through and won the battle of breast cancer a year and a half prior, but the cancer came back and she lost her battle to liver cancer. And when Ayana and I were supposed to do the podcast, I had literally just lost her within a week or so. And one of the things that I think was so important in that moment is trying to show up as best you can, but recognizing sometimes it's hard. In my space where I was sharing with Ayana where I was, because not only had I lost my dear, dear friend, I had just lost another friend mere months before that. And what I had recognized in that moment were multiple things. I started thinking about all the people I had lost in the last couple of years, and the number was over 10. And I had not stopped to heal, and I had not stopped to grieve. And my friend passing in March is what took me over. So that's the space that I was in.
And so, thank you for sharing that, because what I want women to hear is that compounded grief is a thing. And that's when you're experiencing loss on top of loss, on top of loss, on top of loss. And you almost feel like you don't have a moment to come up for air. What I also want to pull apart a little bit is that grief is not always a loss related to death. It is loss of friendship. It is loss of financial means. It is loss of connection. It is like being fired is a loss. It's a traumatic experience. And because we don't categorize it as grief, we're not always sure why we're responding certain ways, why things are impacting us. It took me a year to get over the fact that I was fired from a job. And I was fired from that job for doing my job. And 3 months later, I lost my mother to COVID, but 15 months prior had lost my father. What I'm saying is you recognize it in other people. I could see that she was going to try to push through this interview, this podcast, for the sake of getting it done or not to make me feel bad. Mm-hmm. The reason why I call this sisterhood and soul care is because I do believe that we are our sister's keeper. Mm-hmm. And that means not affording your sister who needs to heal to try to push through, over, or around their healing to show up for the world who doesn't care.
Come on.
We get to preaching and teaching. And she was going to do that. So Paula, I want you to, if you can, articulate why you were feeling the need to just push through. I want to get it done. I don't want to disappoint anybody. What was kind of going through your mind as you were going to make this decision to just sort of push through the pain?
Yeah. So what I do for a living is speak. I am a speaker. I'm an entrepreneur who speaks on all things motivational, but more importantly, leadership development. And so I recognize when I sign up and commit to something, that's what you do. You commit. The irony is a day prior to my friend's memorial service, I had been contracted and paid to do an event called Choose Happiness. Irony. 6 months prior to the day before my friend's service, contracted and paid to do a Choose Happiness workshop. And so I knew in that moment, yeah, you got to show up. You got to show up. Now, let's be clear. I showed up and I showed out because that's what I do. But I also had to share my pain with that audience to understand that even the title of the workshop, Choosing Happiness, sometimes it's hard. We can still do it, but I chose to show up. So even when thinking about, okay, I know this is on my calendar. I know that I told Ayana that I will show up. That's where I was because that's what I do for a living. And at the end of the day, I committed. And it wasn't about where I was. Now I can be, transparent and direct, and I'm authentic, and which is why I clearly told you what was going on. But as I say, I live by my calendar, whether that's good or bad, but I do. And so I knew, no, you committed, you will show up. Now, what happens is that we all know this, right? We put the face on, we do what we have to do. We will put on the smile, we will put it on, we'll put the makeup, the clothes, all the things. But I was willing to do that because I'm committed to it.
And so we will make the commitment. And what I love about that is that we will forego ourselves. We will forego our healing. We will forego the things that we need so that we can show up for others. We're keeping our word. It's an integrity. It's these things. But then life happens. And then what happens when life happens? We're still not even willing to make a pivot.
That's right.
Because we've put it on our calendar. We've committed to doing it. And we would rather push through it than to operate in true humility and say, this is where I am. And so when Paula and I were having a conversation about the workshop, she went back to the person who was handling the workshop and explained and said, I have to share this. And as a result of being obedient to that pivot within her pain, she received some of the most heartwarming messages of the participants, and even of the person who paid her to come in. She was able to impact them by standing in her pain, by choosing to stand in it. Sometimes when we're choosing happiness, we're not always choosing butterflies, roses, and sunshine.
Yes.
I want to make that clear about happiness.
Yes.
Happiness, as much as it's an adjective or maybe it's a verb, you actually have to do happiness. You have to be happiness, which is why, as Miss Lucille was talking, no one else can be your happiness. That is an internal thing. And so in that moment, she's choosing to show up. It wasn't just for the women that she was serving that day. It was also for herself. It was the seed that was planted. Yep, go ahead.
And one thing I want to say, we talk about this idea of soul care. And when we have pain and we have loss and we have grief, I saw someone in the chat say grief will knock you down, right? And it will. And so part of this is recognizing when you have the sisterhood and you have people around you who recognize where you are, regardless of what you say, sometimes just that space to heal, the space to heal. Sometimes it's the moment to allow the person to cry. It's allowing the space to pray. It's allowing the space to laugh. Because let's be clear, it's very hard sometimes to laugh when you're going through it in the grief. It is hard to laugh. But when people give you that space, that is the epitome of soul care. In sisterhood, let's be clear, is real powerful when we allow each other to do so. And I want to share something. So during the midst of all of this, And as I said, I have lost about 10 people in the last couple of years. And it didn't resonate with me until somebody sent me a text and simply said, Paula, I am concerned about you. You have seen and had a lot of loss. Number one, have you thought about grief counseling? Let me be clear, y'all. I hadn't. And yes, I do therapy. Yes, I do. A little different when we talk about grief counseling. But more importantly, what they said to me is, you remind me of a dam. A dam is built strong and sturdy, right? And on the rare occasion, sometimes the dam fails and the water topples over and it collapses. She said, I don't want you to be the dam that collapsed. I need you to take care of yourself. I am sharing that because that hit me in the midst of this loss very powerfully. That is sisterhood. That is soul care. That is somebody pouring into me in the moment when I tell you I could not show up for myself. That one text helped me, honestly, to get through some of the things that I had to get through. So when I tell you all that soul care and sisterhood and what we can do to each other, whether it's the text, whether it's the message, whether it's the phone call, whether it's the email, whether it's the card in the mail, it matters. It matters. When somebody recognizes, somebody said, I've missed your smile. It's good to be able to smile again. It's good to be able to laugh. But we have to make sure that we're doing that for each other. All right, I'm going to get off my soapbox. Go ahead.
It wasn't a soapbox. It was the truth. It was the truth. Because that is the importance. And so one of the reasons why I talk about sisterhood and soul care is because sometimes us as Black women shy away from that type of connection. It's too vulnerable. You're now stepping and infringing on my healing. Now I got to deal with some stuff. I don't know how to hold space for me. And now I'm trying to hold space for you. And so we shy away from the sisterhood connection around this healing of coming alongside our sister and saying, I see you.
That's right.
And I don't know how long the tears are going to last, but whenever you need space to do that. And we did that in that space. I didn't rush you off the call. I didn't just try to reschedule. We held space. We held space and we cried and we prayed and we laughed and we cried and we prayed and we laughed and then we praised.
Yeah. And I think that's such an important piece of all of this. We joke about life is lifing and we know that it does happen. But when you are, again, allowed that space, and that's what Ayanna did for me in that moment, is allowing the space. And sometimes I think we're amazed at when that space is given. Okay. That was that our second time even talking. Yeah. And somebody just put in, the chat, vulnerability. Yeah, being vulnerable, right? But recognizing and showing up, this is just who I am and where I am. But then the receiver, being Ayanna, allowing the space again to cry, the space to heal, to pray, to praise, to laugh, all the things. I will tell you, it really does matter. And I think too often what happens is we hold some of this stuff in, right? That's some of the things that I'm learning, right? I don't do that. I don't break down. I've broken down so much in the last 2 months. It is wow. But it has been healing. It has been healing. Because clearly I needed to, because I had all of this stuff that has happened that I just have not dealt with. So again, when you give that person space to heal, you never know what that will do to somebody. You never know what that allows them to be able to do in the next moment. I'm telling y'all, it matters.
It matters exponentially. And I see it here in the chat, like all the things, right? We have also, we're also guarded and you can't trust everyone with your vulnerability, right?
Yes. Yes.
And it resonates. This is how we are. And then if you were brought up, in sort of the Black household, you don't put your business in the streets.
Yes.
You don't tell everybody what's going on. We don't talk about that stays inside the house. We don't talk about that. We don't share that.
Yeah.
And what happens is it spills over into who we are as people and who we are as women. So we'll just shoulder everything.
Yeah.
I'll get to therapy at some point. I'll get coaching at some point. I'll heal at some point. I mean, I'm doing all right. You know what I'm saying? Ain't nobody complaining. I'll be all right. And so we out here in these streets, and I give this analogy right here. I'm going to put something over my mirror, right? So you guys can see me. You know that I'm moving my hands. You can hear my voice. You can understand what I'm saying. But now I'm out in these streets like, girl, I'm healed. And this is how we look. This is how we're actually showing up. This is how people are actually experiencing us. This is what they hear coming out of my mouth when I say, girl, I'm healed. I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I'm good. And yet this is how we're showing up.
Yep.
And I've made a committed decision that when I see my sis about to show up like this, I say, no, ma'am. Here's what we're not finna do.
Come on.
We not finna show up like that in the world no more.
And that is such a powerful visual illustration of exactly what we're talking about. That was perfect, Ayana. Because here's the thing. What happens is, let's be clear, everybody. We say yes, right? We say yes. We're not good. We say yes. What I have continued to say in the last few months, in the last couple of years, no is a complete sentence. No is a complete sentence. Now, let me be clear. That does not mean that we cannot provide an explanation or tell the person why but it is a complete sentence. And too often what happens is we show up in places that we probably should have said no to, but we say yes over and over and over again because that's what's expected, because that's what we do. As I have said, I took my cape off a long time ago. Confront this. Come on, whoever just said, yes, I took my cape off a long time ago. But in what is happening now is recognizing part of that is got to make sure you're saying no and understanding what that means. It matters. It just matters.
It does. And here's the thing. I had to say no to you. Mm-hmm. Now, do y'all remember way back when, at the beginning of the summit, when I was telling you that on the other side of no is somebody's opportunity to grow, is somebody's opportunity to heal, is somebody's opportunity to mature? In that moment, Paula had to say yes to herself. And that only could happen when I told her no, that she could not do for me. She was not going to be allowed to do for me. You're not going to serve me like this. But I will serve you so that you can say yes to yourself unapologetically and unashamed. And then you can do it in a space with someone who knows grief. I lost my mother and my father within 15 months of each other. And I am a mommy's girl and I'm a daddy's girl. So when and then I got fired from a job and I moved from a state where all my family and friends were to a state where I had no family and friends. You talk about loss.
Yep.
That happened within 18 months. Job loss. Nope. Added on. I was separated from my husband at the time. Lost my dad. Lost my job. Lost my mom. moved from everything that I ever knew as home. The only way I could hold space for someone who's grieving is to have known it.
Yep.
Your responsibility to heal is not just for you.
Yep.
It is for my children. It is for my children's children. It is for my children's children's children. It is for my sister who needed someone to say, sis, you don't know me, but I already love you. I care about you. I see you. I honor you. And you are not going to be in these streets looking a mess. I don't have to know you to love you. Jesus did not have to know you to love you. So I'm charging Black women to make a stand to say, I'm not afraid to tell my Black sister in Christ, my sister in real life, my sister in these social media streets, my sister in these speaking streets, my sister in whatever space she is in, that I love her and I see her and I'm here to help her usher into her next. And I will receive love.
Yep.
I will receive love. I will open myself up. Like Paula has the permission to say, Ayana, no. Maybe you should consider. Now, I'm sharing with you the way the conversation went, but understand that that is reciprocal at any time. At any time. There is power in sisterhood and soul care. You cannot heal by yourself. You need a community of women that can support you as you're going through. Get you a team, a care team. One of my coaches, Jasmine Womack, wrote today, you need a multitude of counsel. Mm-hmm. It is a requirement. It is a biblical principle in all areas of your life. Mm-hmm. In all areas. So, Miss Paula, where are you at today? How are you feeling? Because you came and did the Soul Care Success Series on Wednesday night this week and killed it.
Yeah. So here's where I am. I'm smiling. I am in a space of recognizing grief is going to be grief. It's going to be grief. And it's about taking care of myself. It's about the community. It's about surrounding myself. It's about going out with friends and laughing. It is about showing up and doing the stuff that I love. It's about being here today and talking about my grief. So I'm in a space of, it doesn't go away. So no, I may not cry 5 times a day. It doesn't go away, but I'm in a better space. And at the end of the day, that's what's important, because I need to make sure that I take care of me. Because if I don't take care of myself, I won't be any good to anybody. And clearly I won't be able to do what I do, which is speak. So today, Paula's good. Paula's good.
Listen, say it one more time.
Paula's good.
Okay. Hit him with the line that you hit me with. Ooh, it was so good. I quoted you in my newsletter. It was that good. I promise you. And you said good is what?
Better.
You said good is good enough.
Good enough. Yeah. And it is.
Good is good enough.
Too often we try to be all the things. And good is good enough. Period.
Okay.
It is.
Good is good enough. And Paula is good. Amen, somebody. So listen, here is my first ask. If you desire community that is specifically dedicated to soul care, I want you to join the Warrior Womanhood community. It's on social media. All you have to do is click this bit.ly. It's also in your program. And just request to join. It's that simple. Click, request. so that you can get inside of community where we talk about these things, where we hold space for these things, where we can talk about everything from being molested as a child to being raped to having parental abuse, abandonment, rejection. We talk about the hard things. I don't shy away from my story. If you followed me, you know that I don't shy away from it. I talk about how my dad was a functioning alcoholic. I talked about how my mom was a helicopter mom because of the abuse and rejection and abandonment that she endured as a child. I talk about my struggles as a mom. I've had my son come on live and tell blatantly that he's only had a healed mother for 18 months out of his life. And he was 22 at the time that he said it. And that was only the last 18 months. So you're talking about from like 20 to 22 was the time in his life where he felt like I was healed enough that he had a good mom. I tell you, people are going to judge you anyway, so they might as well judge you on your truth.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You won't get me. You get the real me. But you also get a community of women who are ready to share, ready to pour, ready to heal, ready to say the hard things. Because what? Sisterhood and soul care is a thing, and it matters. Miss Paula, I thank you so much for your transparency, for your vulnerability, for your willingness to share, for your willingness to be open, and then be honest about where you were. You didn't know me from a hole in the wall. It was only our second conversation ever. And I am eternally grateful for your friendship. And I just can't wait to see where it goes, how we can support. I mean, she speaks my language, y'all. She speaks DISC. She's like she does the HR work. Like, I cannot tell you how the aligned stars are happening. Jesus, won't he do it?
Yes, he will.
We speak the same speak personally and professionally. I have dropped also in the chat a resource. It's called Grief Share. And you can go to griefshare.org. They have grief share programs all throughout the United States at local churches for you to be able to sit in a 12-week Christian-based program to help you navigate through your grief, not around it, not above it, not under it, but through it in community. I went through it twice and then started to facilitate it. And even wrote a book about it. It's called Good Grief, where I had people come and talk about their loss, including my children. And we're about to open up the call for authors for volume 2. Hint, hint, Miss Paula. Just saying. Okay? We don't put it out there. It's public record now. I done said it publicly. You can't take it back. You can be like, oh, no, I didn't hear it, sis. I know what you meant. Because I'm just going to send you this little snippet. Like, remember?
Understood.
Remember this?
Understood.
But it's called Good Grief. And it serves as a resource for people who experienced any type of loss. But this volume focuses on how God was still good. He was still good through and through. But I first want you to get inside the free community. In your program, there's a link for you to do it. It's at the very end. There's one, I believe, at the beginning. Just join the community. That's a free ask. So you can get poured into. Amen? Amen, y'all. Miss Paula, I thank you so very much. I thank you for this conversation. It was needed and it was necessary.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And I just want to leave everyone by saying, here's the thing. We all are going to have grief. We all are going to go through life and something's going to happen. And there's all types of grief. But we honestly can choose happiness even in the midst of it. We got to take care of ourselves. And we can't let the grief take us out. So just keep that in mind. Please reach out. Please follow me. Let's have a conversation. It will be okay because good is good enough. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. All right, y'all. We are going to keep this ball rolling. I hope that conversation blessed you. I just really want you to take your grief seriously. Sometimes we lose parts of ourselves in relationships or to people. Sometimes we lose relationships. Sometimes things just have to shift. And as you heal, you'll start to recognize there will be certain people in your life that have to shift their position in your life. And you feel the weight of that. And so we'll stop healing so that we can preserve the relationship. And God is like, no, 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 no. I need you to actually heal because it's that relationship that you need to lose. Lean into it. Grieve it. Grieve yourself. Grieve yourself for all the things that you thought you would become and you haven't yet. Because what God showed me is that when you relieve yourself of that guilt and of that weight, you now make space for him to do the things. We pray for God to bless us in so many different ways. And he is saying, I have no way of getting into your heart because you are harboring grief. You are holding on to your pain. And there is no space. I don't even have a foothold to get myself into your heart to do a work. Grieve you. Grieve you. So you can grieve the loss of others. And then make space for God to do a work in you so that you can get all the things that you actually prayed for.